Welcome to the Bloody Broads Pod. We're your Bloody Broads. I'm Bhavna Sharma.
And I'm Jamie Howard. We are your horror guides from page to screen and everything in between. And this week we are thrilled to have friend of the pod, Sharai Bohannon on. Sharai, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank y'all for having me. I love the show, and I love y'all, so that maths.
It adds up.
We love you.
I am a writer and podcaster and content maker. My podcast, A Nightmare on Fear Street, is findable at Nightmare Fierce on Twitter and A Nightmare on Fear Street on Facebook and Instagram. And y'all will be making an appearance in November. Yeah.
We will be, yeah.
That's true.
And I have made several appearances on the first Thursdays. And I had the honor of doing Sherry's birthday extravaganza where we marathoned all of the Alien series in 48 hours.
Wasn't that an adventure?
What a story. What a weekend. I think by like Alien 3, I was like, sure, whatever.
Right. No, that's when I was like, now I'm mad. Now I'm mad. Y'all are not getting better. You're not fixing your problems. Who do I need to fight?
We'll always have the Ripley dunking a basketball scene.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Like that, the Resurrection one tried. It was like, you know what? We've not been good to y'all in a minute. Let's give you some cool things to put on Tumblr. But also, we're not leaving our thought shit. We're not leaving our thought shit. Here's some Tumblr memes.
What else is it good for?
We had a good time with Resurrection. It was just we were basically cracking jokes every 20 seconds, I think.
It's the delirious for me. It's the delirious after you've been live 4 times in a weekend, which is why we learned and only went live twice this Halloween.
Yeah, thank God. So this week we're having Sharai on to cover Candyman, the brand new Candyman, directed by Nia DaCosta.
Yeah, she's a queen.
And
Queen.
Queen. I think that from the beginning, that wasn't like a yes, Queen, by the way. That was
No.
like a
No.
yes,
Like,
comma,
Yes,
Queen.
comma, yes.
I think it's no secret to anyone that follows any of us on social media that we pretty much all love this movie. I don't have anything negative to say. So starting from the beginning, I mean, the opening credits were a work of art.
Yeah. Oh, as a warning as usual, this is going to go into spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen it, watch it and then come back.
I mean, I hope after like 6 episodes, y'all have figured that out.
I mean, or not, let us take you through the movie. Your choice.
It's fun. No, this is the first movie I've seen in theaters since the pandemic and before. So I'd not been in a theater in about 2 years. And so I went in and like this Alamo Drafthouse had just opened the weekend I went to see it. And I was like, well, it's Alamo Drafthouse and it's Candyman, so I'm going to go do this. And so when they started putting up like the logos and like the production companies and it was backwards, I was like, oh no, this is the first weekend. This is awkward. And I was like, oh no, I'm old.
I literally was like texting Bhavna and I was like, I think my version is messing up.
And I was just like, no, just hold on.
She's like, no. She's that meme of the daughter guiding the grandma where she's like, okay, grandma, let's get you home.
I was like, oh no, I'm a boomer.
No, don't worry about it. When I was in theater, when I saw it in theaters too, like my friend that I went with, she looked at me and she was just like, "The fuck?" And I said, "This must be something artistic. It can't be." Because I was like looking around to see if like an attendant was going to come by or like go to the projection room or whatever. And
I felt so bad. I felt so bad. I was like, I will stay while y'all figure it out because I love you. And I was like, never mind, you don't need me.
I know.
That was an artistic choice.
Yeah, and having it mirrored, I think that set the tone. To be able to set the tone for a film just in the credits is such an underrated work of art within the film industry because it's easy to do when there's like a montage in the opening credits, right? Like this didn't even need a montage. It didn't even need the background score, to be honest. It just showed us the words reflected backwards. And I was like, oh shit.
Oh, this is the road we're going down. All right. Okay.
No, it made me so happy because I think that a lot of my anxiety about this one was like, what if it doesn't change enough about that remake? Because it's one of the franchises where I had to be honest with myself and be like, I love Tony Todd. I don't love this franchise.
Yes.
I mean, who doesn't love Tony Todd?
Right? Like he sold us this franchise and we were like, Candyman, Candyman. And then like as we were older, we were like, oh wait, is it
Oh no.
is it Tony Man or is it Candyman?
It's the subtitle of this episode. Tony
Is it
Man.
Tony Man?
Well,
Oh.
it's just like we've all said kind of offline before too. It's just such a visually stunning movie. Like if nothing
Mhm.
else, if you don't enjoy the Candyman saga, you
Yeah.
need to see this to see a masterclass in using a negative space
Yeah.
as a visual, work within the film, and B, the color shifts between when they're at their nice bougie, apartment that's huge and gorgeous
Mm-hmm.
versus when they're in Cabrini Green versus when they're in the high school. Like this movie has so many color palettes and I love it. It's gorgeous.
I would have them all in an eyeshadow palette.
No, I don't remember the last time I've seen a movie that was so gorgeous. Like the costumes and the hair and the artwork they were in front of. And I was just like, this is a visual experience. This is what people are always trying to make me believe the 70s were doing for them.
Oh
Not even gonna lie. I after seeing Brianna in the gold eyeshadow, I was like, wait, I have gold eyeshadow. Wait,
Right.
I'm not that much lighter than her. Oh wait, that would look great on my skin. I should do that. And the next time I wore makeup, I went gold, and I was like, oh right, I can pull this off.
And also this movie, go ahead, Sherry.
Oh, that's all I had to contribute was listen. Like,
You and I say that a lot. And if people were ever our FBI agents that are listening into our conversations, our voice notes, they're like,
Just
what are
like,
they listening for? They're just saying, listen, back and forth.
right? What are we listening? Wait, what happened? Did we miss something?
Yeah.
Is she whispering? And so, no, that was the conversation. Listen
It's
was
just
the
the whole
sentence.
conversation.
Yeah, but everybody's costume was perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. Which I appreciate because usually when we go back to the 70s, especially when we go to those sort of Cabrini Green situations,
Yeah.
it's like everybody looks poor and run down because we don't know what to do with Black people and we don't know what to do with poverty. And so I appreciate that. I knew where they were. I felt familiar, but also they were in color. They weren't just these drab, raggedy people who are embarrassing to look at, which is a problem Hollywood keeps having.
Yes.
Yeah.
They want to keep the same color palette as before Charlie Goes to the Chocolate Factory in the original Willy Wonka.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that filter. It ain't great.
No, I'm just what is this shot on? But anyways, to get into the characters, that art dealer, I hated him. I don't even remember his character name right now because I was I just hate him.
I forgot his name too.
I
His
was
name
just
need to be remembered.
I was like Candyman fodder. Good day.
Yeah. He just got put into the wood chipper of the Candyman ethos.
Yeah, he was just. I mean, he was perfect. He was served up so perfectly. There was no better candidate to shove into the fire first.
No.
Right? I mean, well, they kill. So the first kill is actually, well, it is him. And then the girl that he's
No, it's the girl first because he slices.
Okay. He slices her neck. That's right.
Yeah.
So for those listening, because we're all hand gesturing at each other, you guys can see us. So the first kill of the movie, in my notes, it's just all caps, that kill with 14 exclamation points. Because, our main character, played by Nathan Jarrett Stewart, is...
No, he's not the main character. He's the brother.
Yeah, that's right.
My shout
I
out
got
is to him
excited.
because I just love that he has a career because he was so great in Misfits.
Right?
That's what it was, is I got excited because I was oh yeah, I love Misfits so much.
And he had the best line in the trailer too. So it was the Black people don't need to be summoning people. Summoning things. And I was just
that was the movie.
That was it.
Jordan Peele's Nope. That's it. That's the thesis.
That's it. Period. At the end of that sentence.
Yeah, but Yaya was our lead, which I've been waiting
Thank
for.
you.
'Cause Yaya should have been leading for a minute. Let's
Yes.
talk about that artwork. Who also is really talented and smart,
What a man.
He is artwork.
right? If they put him in front of a wall, I'd have been like, yeah, that's Dan's. We're in an art gallery.
If he had just like stood there, we're thirsting after this man in public, y'all. It's fine. So yes, my apologies. I got super excited about talking about this and jumped ahead, but Ilya is our lead.
Yes.
When he is, anytime he's shown in his art studio was one of my favorite pieces of the movie. Each time it got more and more violent, but not to skip too far ahead because y'all know me, I do that all the time. When we see him at the art gallery and he's watching people observe his art, I had such a visceral reaction to watching him watch white people consume his art.
And that's one of the conversations I was hoping we would see when reviews started popping out, but we don't have enough Black critics, so didn't get it, because that is a real concern. Because like you create these things, and then like when the white gaze lands on them, what is it? Do they understand it? No, clearly, if you look at the reviews for this movie, and so like you're watching him as he's like also navigating his own like responsibility in the history of this thing that he's co-opting, because we have this like ongoing theme of gentrification, and this is not his. He does not know this is his history. I should say he does not know it is his history.
No, he doesn't. But that doesn't mean he doesn't connect with it anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, and his ancestors were clearly like, "Hey, what are you doing today?"
But also just like having even before the gallery scene, it's like when he's showing his art to that curator, that dealer, whoever he is, that victim. Is he okay, fine. That murder victim. We can at least go that
We can at least say murder victim.
He was murdered.
Yeah, he was murdered. But even when he was showing his art, like you saw just that exchange. Well, for the viewers, I am not Black. I am of Indian heritage and stuff. But like, just even how much I connected with that, like, you know, you're trying to put your work forward, you're trying to explain who you are, and then the moment you get into like what's acceptable at the moment, to like when he starts talking about, you know, the relation between was it gentrification? Was that what he was talking about? Yeah. And then he goes, "Oh, racism. Okay, I'm on board." And I'm like, "Bruh."
That's one of my biggest things, because as a writer, you write these things and people are like, "But we want you to talk about Black trauma and we want you to talk about racism." And it's like, sometimes I just want Black girls having brunch. Why can't that just be enough sometimes? And so I loved that conversation with the dealer, because it keeps happening. Because like, how often, even when you're pitching articles for some places, are they like, "Oh, I want to hear more about your thoughts on Black trauma. Are you going to watch them?" And it's like, "No, I will not be watching them. And I will not be writing for you. Good day." And so,
Good day.
Yeah, good. I said good day.
good day.
Well, and I think that's such, you know, okay, here's something that we can go ahead and discuss, because I feel pretty strongly about it, and I know you guys do too. We don't have to leave social commentary solely as subtext. People are like, "Oh, it's so heavy-handed." Okay, sometimes things need to be heavy-handed. Yeah, like sometimes.
Because sometimes when they're not heavy-handed, then it's like, "Oh, was it telling me something?" And then it's like, "Yes, yes, it was."
Or people don't get that it's satire or whatever, and that's the danger of satire. So that's why I'm so on board with this, with Us, with Get Out. Like, people clowned Get Out and talked about like, "Oh, it was a good movie, but it was super heavy-handed," and I'm like, okay,
that's
but
why it was a good movie.
Also, there are literally people who have said things like, "I would have voted for Obama a third term if I could."
Yes.
Like,
I love having pieces of other people's culture, which is what the dad basically says. When Chris is in the house, these people exist. These people are people's moms and aunts, and they won't check them. And so these movies are here, so you can have the conversation easily before somebody else has to like clap back at them on Twitter, which is usually me. So like, you can take them to Get Out and Candyman, or you can let them come at me on Twitter on a Saturday.
I
mean, or both. Both is good.
Right? I will reaffirm the lesson that they clearly missed.
So we're at this art gallery opening, or this art show opening, I should say. And we finally get to see the work completed that he's been doing this entire time, which is a mirror that you can open. And on the inside to me, it looks like a collage. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
It's almost like he had I think he had them on different pedestals or like different like mounts inside as well. So it almost looked like an exhibit within the exhibit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Yeah, you opened it and it was like
invited
another
you-
space inside.
Yeah, which I really loved because, you know, we've all been to museums, and I really enjoy going to exhibits, and so 2020 sucked not being able to go to museums in person.
I know.
But
I had a
it just
museum pass that I had to forfeit.
No.
Yeah.
It just, but how many times, Bhavna, did this movie remind you of going to an exhibit, especially like, because here in Atlanta, obviously we are kind of an epicenter of African American art and culture, and it's such a blessing to get it to see some huge openings and then some, you know, amazing curations of historic figures art. But how many times have we gone to a museum and there's like someone's family and they're like badass little kids, like run around the gallery, being disrespectful, like not absorbing the art, not taking 2 seconds to think about it. And this opening just reminded me of, it's performative. Like that's, this whole thing was like, these white people were here to see the gallery, and then they were like, oh, it's only about racism. And he had to keep saying, no, it's actually about gentrification. It's just the holding a mirror up to whiteness.
Yeah, and then you also had that, like, there was just another moment where there was just so much in this scene that we're going to unpack. This might be the whole episode. No, that's fine. So, but even when there was like that conversation that douchebag curator was having, you know, when he sees, he goes up to Brianna when he sees, his name's Anthony, right? Yaya's character. When he sees Yaya go up to the critic and like talk to her and stuff, which, I mean, I get that anxiety. It's like, you're missing the point of my work here. But the curator goes like, he's hogging the critic. He's doing all this stuff. And I'm like, maybe you just need to back the fuck off, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
because, again, like if you are putting on this collection that you want to be about racism, you need to give it context, because the white critics are going to fail you and the white audience is going to fail you. That's just all there is to it. And so if you're not going to support them, of course, some of the artists are going to be like, hey, you're missing the point of what this is. Let me walk you through it, like I always have to do.
Which is exactly your point, though. Like, even about the reviewers for this movie, it's like it's the same point. It's like there's no diverse group to judge, or not judge, but like to take in all this art. Then you're only going to get that one perspective. And it's not necessarily like, it's art. There's more than just one perspective. It's in the beholder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're only getting one view, that's not cool. That's not a good way to do it. Like, it's shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, like so many critics keep trying to like cover Black art and they don't know how. And so you get these like things full of bias, and you get these things that miss the fucking point. And they're like, oh, I don't get this play about a whale. And it's like, it's not about a whale, it's about incarceration of Black men. You do not read your fucking pamphlet. And so this keeps happening. And the New York Times just keeps doing it. And it keeps doing it. Because they want to claim you can't find Black critics. But like most of my like texts are Black critics and Black reviewers who have to do it for free because nobody's hiring us. Like the only Black reviewers I was able to find today when I was looking and just getting stuff together for my thoughts, because I haven't seen this in a minute and it's not for sale yet, and I was like, I'm paying $20, I'm gonna own this bitch because I need her.
Right.
So I was like, let me get a refresher. But it was all like my own like squad from Twitter. Those are the only Black people I'm seeing talk about it. And they're the ones who get it and can critique it lovingly, because no movie's flawless, even though this one is pretty fucking close. But like, they're the ones who actually get the point and the messages, and you have these white people who don't and will never, and they can't own that.
That's like, so when I went to go see it, I saw it twice, and I saw it in 2 different neighborhoods, and you could tell. So one was downtown, one was uptown.
Yep.
And downtown had a bit more of a diverse crowd. But like both times, the only times where like people weren't like moved by it, or not necessarily moved, or like, you know, that like quick shuffle of like, I'm uncomfortable, I need to get the fuck out of here kind of shuffle out of a movie theater, were the white people. Like, it was literally, I saw, and I guess just for science sake, I saw the movie twice with people of color. So, you know, we were all like, oh my God. Because, you know, you may not be able to relate 100% because obviously it's a very different history, but you can relate enough to go, yeah, that's fucked, you know? And it just made me angry. Because this happens every time I see a movie through, like, about the Black experience. So it's like Us, Get Out, you know, Candyman, all these times. And it's just like, sorry to bother you. Another one that was great
man.
to watch
God,
with my people.
I love Sorry to Bother You. Oh my God.
Me too.
I refuse to read the reviews on that one. I just refuse. I was like, this is not for you. And you're gonna try me.
No.
Because they're always like, didn't do what the black audience wanted. I'm like, should you not ask a black person? Let's start there.
And I
Oh
mean,
my God.
that just like happens again and again in this movie. And I think on top of that, then we also get the layer of class because we get Brianna versus Anthony and where they came from and their relationship. So we get our first kill. Sorry to people listening who expected like some kind of linear thing. We've done enough episodes. You guys should know better.
Yeah, we jump around. Watch the
We jump around. We're like House of Pain. We jump around.
It's a deep cut and I love it.
It's for my 90s children. So the first kill was actually my favorite, I think, because it was so indicative of the Candyman lore. So the gallery assistant summons Candyman in Anthony's piece, which again is a mirror. And when you open it up, there's like a mini exhibit within the mirror, and invites the viewer to test out the Candyman theory. Well, I should say urban legend at this point. She says it, he appears, but he only appears with his shadow, and that creeped me right the hell out. I was not ready.
Yeah, he shows up with just his shadow, and he's causing physical damage, but you can't see the instrument, and you can't see anything except for
He's
the
like an
damage
evil ass
itself.
Peter Pan.
Yes.
Yes.
Except believing in fairies won't get you shit.
No.
And sorry, I just have to point out the curator and the assistant were in the weirdest makeout scene I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That is okay. This is not the actor's fault. It
No.
is solely just because of, I think, my own experiences, and also like, I don't know, maybe it was, I don't know, the least chemistry ever. I was like, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly he was taking advantage of his assistant because there was
That
a
was a big
throwaway
part of it.
line about like how this isn't the first time, What was it? You have to invest in the morning stock in the morning after pill for your assistants.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Right? It was uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable.
But
I
she,
was
like- Yeah. But she hooks her suspenders to his belt loop.
I know.
Or
I was like,
something.
is this Panic at the Disco circa 2005? What is happening?
Or like her Joy Division shirt with that sign, and it's like, then she uses the line "Love will tear us apart," and it's like, we get it.
I feel like Joy Division. When she says love will tear us apart, Jesus.
It felt like that emo kid who's like trying to like draw a sex comic, but has never actually had sex or seen a good sex scene, and they're like, "This is sexy connecting things and quoting my favorite songs." It's like,
It's that cartoon that everybody had on like their Zyngas and MySpace where it's like, I make you a cookie, but then I eat it. That's for the real scenesters.
But yeah, so then she gets her throat slit while she's physically connected to him.
And get away from her.
Nope. Which I honestly, my theater was cackling each time.
Oh, I died.
Yeah.
No,
Because it's just this image of this middle-aged man on the floor, like going, like, is this real? Like, is she dead? And then, like, he's being yanked up by this invisible force, and he's just like flailing and being dragged, and like limbs are being cut, and it's just like, what is it? Nelson from The Simpsons.
Yeah. So we get the morning after scene, and doesn't Brianna discover them?
Yep.
yeah.
Holy shit. That's all I have in my notes, by the way.
She just walked right by the dried blood on the ground with her coffee, blah blah blah, going to the office, and then she's like, wait a minute, this is a trail. Like, they didn't clean up. What the fuck is this?
Can you imagine?
This needs to go on Girl That Scary's list of workplace horror. Because she came into work and found bodies. Man, absolutely not. Y'all would never hear from me again.
No, I'd be like, and I'm done. Here's my resignation in the form of these bodies.
I would turn around and send an email from my phone asking for a sick day because I didn't see shit. What? I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this.
I ain't getting involved with the cops.
No.
Go fuck yourselves.
No.
So I don't know if I like hopped ahead in my thoughts or what, but shortly after that scene, we find out that the reason Brianna is so I don't want to say hesitant to support Anthony's art, but maybe she's motherly towards him is because of her situation with her dad growing up.
Yeah, her dad. Her dad was a artist. You could tell, but you could tell because, like, you know, in the flashback, she walks in the room. There's several different paintings, and he's clearly about to go jump out a window.
Yeah.
And you know, and she's the one that sees him basically jump out the window, and he has like that scary line of like, you know, did you know your dad could fly? And like jumps out the window. And honestly, my first honest thought was just like, wait, is he involved somehow? Like, is this connected? Like, I thought he was the connection.
I was like, how many Candyman we gonna have? And then that was not what happened.
I was like, wait, is he Candyman?
Two Candyman is slashing. Someone needs to write the 12 Days of Horror. Not me, but somebody. Y'all know me. I'm always going to talk about family trauma when it gets brought up in horror because it's super prevalent and America is terrible at addressing our mental health in general, but especially generational trauma. And I'm with Bhavna in terms of like how we initially felt towards this, where I'm like, okay, I wish we would have explored it a little bit more, but we both agree that I'm glad that wasn't the connection to the Candyman lore because it would have been, I don't know, it would have been a little cheap, I guess, for lack of better.
Yeah, like it was perfect just for that little red herring.
Yeah. No, it would have cheapened it because we have that other Candyman through line of the guy who gave children candy and the police shot him.
Yeah.
And so it would have, I mean, it would have needed so much more to make it into that world and not make it a lesser situation because, like, if we were going to, like, actually dissect how this man was, like, this great artist who wasn't being given attention and time because he was Black in the 70s, then that's a conversation we could be having, and that would make sense, but then you have to, like, do a lot more service to that. Because I feel like, again, our trauma is our trauma, and I think that seeing your dad do that is part of the reason that she has this relationship she has with Anthony, because like there's a little part of her that is like, my dad was an artist and now I'm in a position to help Black artists, and so I'm going to do that, even though when she needed to leave, she did fucking leave, because Anthony, I keep trying to call him Yaya because that's what I call him in my part-time. But when Anthony was losing his shit, she was like, you know what I will not do? Become a statistic. I'm going to my brother's, get out of my house.
Good for her, honestly.
Their relationship cracked me up.
Okay. Yes. So again, I'm kind of embarrassed because like I've seen this movie twice now, and I knew my brain said Yaya was the main character, and then my mouth said Jonathan because I just got so excited to see Nathan Jared Stewart because I just got so excited to see him. Yes. He was the perfect. Oh my God, he was such a good foil to her kind of uptight older sibling-ish. Role.
And it was a great way to show like how one trauma affects two different like people in the same family. Like she saw it head on, so she kind of took on that like because I'm an older sister as well, so it's like, you know, if you're an older sibling, you kind of just for all you older siblings out there, you just kind of take on a bunch of shit you never even tell your younger siblings about. You see a bunch of shit, you take it in, you process it, and then you shield them. So like you could see that dynamic between the two of them. So he was able to grow up, not trauma-free, that's the wrong word, but like he was able to grow up a little more sheltered than, you know, her, and like discover the world on a better schedule than her because of what she experienced. And like you can see that it's very subtle. It's one of those things that you notice if you've kind of been there, like if you know, you know. But you know, it was just written and done so well.
No, I'm number 6 of 8 kids. And the way we process all of the shit we were put through is vastly different from person to person. It's to the point where I'm just now being able to talk to some of my siblings about some things because they're finally in a place to talk about it. And some of it, I'm just like, I've already dealt with that and processed that. So could you not bring that to me? Therapy's good and it's for all of us.
Well, and this, you know, and Sharai and I have talked about this ad nauseum off pod. This showing her leaving is kind of like and I'm gonna get maybe some angry tweets for this. This is like the anti Tyler Perry situation.
Yes.
Where the Black woman gets to leave instead of suffering through a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy you name dropped him because I've seen enough bits and parts of his work to know that he has issues with Black women, and we don't talk about it enough. But he's gonna make a horror movie with Jason Blum, so that's fine.
Wait, what?
Thank you. Who asked for that? I was pissed that every day I don't log into my Twitter and be like, let's just end it all. Like, I'm impressed with myself.
Shut it down.
Just shut it down. But like, they're gonna make a horror movie together because those are two people I want doing Black horror together.
That's gonna be several other episodes. I feel like.
Listen,
yeah.
he touched one. I guess I don't even want to call it Indian, whatever the fuck Evil Eye was. He tried to touch that shit, and my cousins and I were so stoked. We will be covering this later, by the way, guys, in April. And just be prepared for me to be angry the whole time.
It's on my list, but I was like, we don't have the right guests to be angry, so I'm just gonna sit here reading statistics. Thank you. You begin.
I'll go on.
Yay! Thank you.
I watched it. Yeah, no, but it's just more like, of all the things in Indian culture, that's what you want to focus in on, and that's how you want to cover it. Like,
not all the really cool like gods and goddesses that have like.
No, you want to talk about abuse and abusive like reincarnated. Oh, whatever. Anyway, point is, we don't need a Tyler Perry and Jason Blum.
No,
we got Medea's Halloween. We don't need any.
So Jennifer Blum also last season gave us Black Box, which was a decent movie. We didn't need Felicia Rashad for many reasons. It was a decent movie. And now he has a new movie out, which I've not seen. I forgot the name of it already because I'm not gonna watch it. But like, it's part of the Welcome to Blumhouse this year, and there is a depiction of animated slavery, or I forget what sort of animation specifically. And I'm like, I don't need that.
Excuse me?
I'm gonna Google the movie right now because my friends who are watching it was like, you don't want this, and I'm like, you are damn right. Thank you for taking that for me.
Well, that's a great segue though. The animation, back to Candyman for a quick moment, was the use of the shadow puppets throughout. So like in the beginning, when I'm just gonna call him Nathan Jarrett Stewart, when he was telling the story of Candyman, they used this like shadow puppet, but like a sinister kind of like sharp angled kind of shadow puppet weight animation to show the story.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the puppets, the shadow puppets that you would make like when you were really, really little. Like
when you couldn't like do circles or circular cuts, and it was very angular.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was very childlike and very sweet.
Yes.
And creepy.
But there's also a very, very creepy, but like also a really, and they use it later on. We're jumping ahead a little bit, but they also use it later on when Yaya, I'm just gonna call him Yaya because that's his name, is being told the story by Coleman Domingo, who lived in Cabrini Green as a kid, and is telling him about all the different Candymen. He's telling him the story of Daniel Robitaille and all that stuff, and they use the animation again. So whenever they're doing anything like the storytelling of the past and not a flashback, they're using this animation, which I thought was brilliant on so many different fucking levels that like I had to like take time to think about it, because there's like that level of this is like a children's medium, like a children's entertainment medium. This is how you would tell morality tales, historic tales, things like that. Like it's shadow puppets, like you dumb it down for kids that way. But like, think about how much venom is passed down to children in that pleasant medium, and how much racism and how much sexism and how much misogyny and how much any kind of and ism is like passed down to children in this harmless, but it's just for kids, kind of way, and how much of it is ingrained in your brain and you grow up with it and you have to unlearn all of that shit. So,
and I think too, it comes into play when we think about how when you remember things from when you were a kid, the older you get, the more you can either you see the emotional side of things with clarity, even if the actual details get fuzzy. So for them to use shadow puppets made out of like, really angular paper or whatever, to me was a really good opportunity to soften the blow. Because if you are in therapy at all, you can completely relate to what I'm about to say. When you're a therapist, is like, when you're telling a therapist, like, yeah, this one time my parents tried to pick me up from school, just as an example, and I was left there for like whatever hours, and it was like really, if that was really traumatizing to you, you are intellectualizing the details because you're like, yeah, well, they were busy and they worked 2 jobs and of course they were late. But then your therapist is usually like, okay, but how does that actually feel to you? And you're like, oh shit. Like I have to actually feel it. And so for them to use puppets instead of showing flashbacks with humans is a way to distance yourself from that trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's already a whole bunch of trauma going on in the actual film.
Yeah. No, I was very happy with the way Daniel was handled this time around because again, the original trilogy was made by white people. So good intentions, Clive Barker, but still made by white people. And so it centered whiteness, and he was sort of like, he was just the monster in the story that he shouldn't have been. He literally, he was hunted because of racism, and he was like murdered because of racism, and now he's the monster who wants to chase after the white women in his family line. And I'm like, make it make sense.
Honestly, and I also like that they, speaking of that though, they brought back, was it Virginia Madsen's character? But like, she was just like background filler, like she wasn't the special, like
Right?
it was
It's
just
not
like,
about her
okay.
anymore.
It's not about her.
Yeah.
Thank God. And I mean, it was more like he used her as research. It wasn't all like, I must avenge this white lady or something like that. Because I was actually afraid that was going to be one of the things. Like, I have way more faith in Nia DaCosta than that. But, it's just that dread of, like, I've seen this film before in that sense,
Listen, no, which is why I was very happy that one of the themes was who gets to tell the story in this movie, because like they finally took it back. They reclaimed the legend of Candyman because we all love Tony Todd and there was something in there that we were never getting. And so we reclaimed it. And that is a real conversation. Who gets to tell the story? Because again, you have these like white people who don't understand what it is to be black in America, writing these black stories and co-opting them with Tyler Perry. And they're not talking to black people who should be telling the stories, or whoever should be telling the stories. Because, like, it is Hispanic Heritage Month or Latinx Heritage Month, depending on who you ask, because identity is a real thing. And we don't have nearly enough things streaming. Like, I put together a streaming guide, and I was like, this is all there is, or this is all that people were willing to put up. And so... Yeah. We need the people in these rooms and in these positions to do these things, but we won't do it. And we keep doing the same dance of, oh, well, we gave you this one thing and you should just be appreciative. And it's like, no, I don't want Jason Blum telling my story. That's not my story. Jason Blum is telling it.
Yeah.
Blum. I keep saying Blum. Blum. Blum is telling it. Blum. He doesn't matter. It's fine.
It was never him. It was always the other people. Like, I had never watched a Blumhouse production for him. Like, I think Blumhouse, I don't think him. I think, like, James Wan. I think, like, Leigh Whannell.
Yes.
Yeah. I think Jordan Peele.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
I don't think
things.
I don't think that, like, wasted, leathery, white, whatever shit.
No.
Producer man.
No, he's literally just there greenlighting anything with a name attached. And that is his thing.
Yeah. Like, oh, is this going to be a story with representation that I don't have to do any research for and everyone else is going to do the blood, sweat, and tears? Yeah, here's a stack.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm glad this movie, like you said, Sharai, just got to the heart of the matter and basically was like, if someone's going to die in this story, almost all of them were white. And
I'm pretty sure, yeah, actually, yes, except for one. Yeah.
Yeah, except for one. And that we do get the whole story of Daniel Robitaille, because seeing his story be about, oh, he was this artist, which then mirrors Anthony's journey, Yaya's journey. He fell in love with a woman and she happened to be white. And of course, this was antebellum time, so that was absolutely not. And we get that could have been disgusting, right? Like they could have really played up the trauma porn on that, and they didn't, because they used the paper shadows.
The puppets, yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that, that wasn't the focus of this movie.
No.
Oh, thank God.
No.
Right? Because we already have Candyman 2 and 3, which
No. I was like, I'm so happy Tony Todd got paid. That's
Yeah. And and this movie did what Halloween 2018 did, which was like, all right, we're just gonna scrap all the sequels and we're gonna go back to we're gonna count one and then we're gonna go forward.
Yeah.
Which I think this movie to me was the perfect example of pain as a ghost and trauma as a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what usually happens is we have to come into the movie of trauma. It has to be about the trauma instead of what happens after the trauma and the fallout
Which
and the
is
result.
so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Y'all already know this. I'm super into the idea of what happens after someone is the final girl. And this story being about, to me, this story was mostly about realizing your place within a larger history. And also the idea of, like you said, Sharai, who gets to tell the story.
Because that was one of the conversations that was happening here, which is why it made some of the criticism funny, because a lot of the people were like, oh, this was trying too hard to be woke. And it's like, the other one thought it was being woke, so what is the difference? And then it's not centering whiteness. And it's people telling the story who should be telling the story, as opposed to Clive Barker had an idea. And that's no shade to Clive. He's given us good shit, but it just was not his story. And he did what he could, but also it shouldn't have been down to Clive Barker to give us a black boogeyman. That should not have been his. That was not what he needed to do.
Have you guys read the original short story this is based on?
No, actually.
Okay, it's great, but it's literally nothing hardly at all to do with the original movie. The short story this is based on has nothing to do with the original movie hardly, other than the concept of Candyman and the hook for a hand and a little bit of the Daniel Robitaille stuff, but he's white. So yeah, everybody that's listening, Sharai and Bhavna just turn their heads when dogs think they hear something. Because I'm 99% sure. Yeah. Because that was something that threw me off. So I read Clive Barker way too young. He was I actually read him around the same time that I discovered Goosebumps, because some poor librarian in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, put them in the same section. So yeah, it is a very different, to say the least, take on this story. But anyways, I enjoyed, I think, having a story that's focused more on the after, for lack of better, phrasing.
Yeah, no, we need more of that, especially because for some reason Hollywood keeps relying on that trauma, which is why we keep getting the same, well, they can go to space, but if racism is involved, or they can fall in love, but there has to be a racism thing they have to overcome first. And it's no, sometimes, especially when I don't leave my apartment and I don't get on the internet, I can go a whole day without racism being a factor in anything I do. But Hollywood is oh no, if they're going to brunch, I have to walk through all this racism and oppression. And it's no, stop. And so I was really happy that we were we're gonna connect this to that, but we're not gonna do that bullshit. That nonsense is in the past. We're moving forward and we're taking ownership of this story, because the story should have belonged to us to begin with.
Honestly, I think that's the ideal balance, is acknowledging that all of that exists and all of that is what brought you to this point, but that's not the point. It's where we are now, how we're dealing with now, and how we're going forward, and not in an ideal utopian kind of way either, in a very real I look at this movie, and if you take out the supernatural elements, it still could have been not a documentary, but you know what I mean, right? It's I could see this being someone telling me their actual story.
Yeah.
You took out the supernatural elements completely, I could be I could see it, a traumatized, Black artist having to deal with all of this stuff, blah, 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 while living with another traumatized
Cause that's the real journey of Black artistry. That's the real journey of figuring out your own relationship to your body and the situation that is race that's inherent no matter what you do, even if you think it's not there. It's always playing some part of it. It's like, did you select me because I'm the only Black person you know? Did you select me because you had no other Black people here? Like, am I the palatable Black person? Is it because I'm lighter skinned than everybody else who might be better than me? Like, these are real conversations that I have to have with people, especially because sometimes they're just like, oh, we want your play. Does your lead need to be Black? And I'm like, then you don't want my play if that's your first question. And so this movie means so much, and it handles so much so well. And it was wasted on people who have all these privileges and advantages in their life and don't want to believe this is bad for Black people who are in the artist world.
Yeah, like I went to go see it with the first time I went to go see it with one of my best friends, and she's actually half Black, half Korean, so she's got her own trauma to go with that we have talked about pretty much our entire lives since we were 18. There's a reason why we both bond on that one. So she went to go see it with me because our mutual friends are all pretty white. But the thing that she pointed out to me actually was the hair, like the hair wrap at night, right? Like if anybody here knows any Black people, or you are Black yourself, and you know the whole, like, you know, people wrap up their hair at night. It makes sense. I mean, I do it, and I'm not Black. I just have really thin, fragile hair. And I don't want that pillow taking like 3 strands I have left off my head.
I'm lazy and I just use a silk pillowcase.
but like she was just so happy that they put that in there as like not a pointing it out that she had her hair wrapped up, but it was just more like she's getting ready for bed. It's just as simple as brushing your teeth or
I love that, and we don't get it enough, which is why when it happens, everybody loses their fucking mind. Because I remember it was the first season of How to Get Away with Murder, where Anna Keaton, played by Viola Davis, takes her wig off. People are like, "Oh my god!" And she takes her makeup off, and then of course she asks her husband, "Why is your dick in this girl's phone? Dead girl's phone?
Why is your dick on a dead girl's phone?"
But it was the first time people were like, "Oh my god, what is happening? Are we seeing a real Black person on TV? ABC, how could you?"
And it's like and for them to not choose, but like for them to just put something so natural in there and not like, you know, when you would see other white productions where it's things like them eating spicy food or like fried chicken or like, I'm trying to think of stereotypes off the top of my head, like, you know, little things like that where it's like, no, this is just hey, this is a scene where it could be anybody getting ready for dinner, but it's these 2 individuals for bed. And sorry, I'm hungry, guys, it's lunchtime. It's these 2 individuals getting ready for bed, and like, who are they and what would they do? And that's exactly what they would do.
Yeah.
And it's not like, hey, look at me. It's just more like she was just so happy at how it wasn't pointed out.
And I think the reason that it feels so, like you said, Sharai, people were like, oh, this is trying too hard, quote unquote, to be woke, is because you're not used to seeing it. So of course it feels foreign. Of course it feels like, quote unquote, too much, because you've never experienced anything different. Like you don't second guess getting into your car and going to get gas. But if someone who lives in a neighborhood that's mostly walkable, they're like, okay, well, that's not how I start my morning. Just as, you know, a generic example. Yeah. And so this movie was so Chicago. There were aspects of, and I love Chicago. I have family there, almost moved there. This movie was so distinctly, to me, Chicago, but also more importantly, and thank God it was so Black. And it's not apologizing for it. It's like, here's the story, and if you can't relate to some of this, that's fine, but we're still going to look at it through this lens.
Yes. No, I spent almost 4 years in Chicago, almost. And this movie felt like if me and my friends who were being bougie on a budget had actually gotten to have adult money and adult jobs while we were all there together. Because these are the conversations we were having in each other's apartments, drinking cheap wine and shit. We're talking about like the art situation in Chicago and how the theaters are failing and embarrassing and how we might not want to do theater anymore. And like, so-and-so just got a job, good for them. But also that place is awful and toxic. And the navigating of art spaces as Black people, because again, there is just like an inherently different experience when you are a Black person and you show up to work at an opera house than anybody else.
I can imagine.
I wrote a play about it because it was cheaper than therapy. And so
I mean,
Yeah, and so and people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear
No, because people specifically, and I can't speak to other countries, but especially in America, we have this idea of we need to be homogenous. We need to all have the same standard, the same white picket fence, 2.5 kids and a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And A, that doesn't work for everybody, and B, it's fucking boring. And C, that's just not life. And I think when people in America are uncomfortable with seeing a movie like this, where, you know what, it's fine that there's not a white chirpy best friend or whatever, or like, that's fine. It doesn't matter, because that's not what the story is about. The story is about A, generational trauma, as no one is going to be surprised to hear me say, and B, how racism can literally create a tulpa of a boogeyman and pass it down through generations. I mean, my God, if there was ever a time to have this conversation, I mean, it was about 125 years ago, but also now people are still sticking their head in their sand about January 6th. Like, I mean, this movie is like, no, we're just gonna talk about everything out in the open.
Yeah. No, it again, I think that meme that was floating around a couple of months, years, I don't know time, but there was a meme floating around, and it was like, the big issue is that white people don't understand real talk. Because this is real talk. This movie's real talk. This movie's like, these are the things, this is the problem, and this is what this could and should be. And white people are like, no, it's too spicy. And so they don't want it. No.
Yep. And like, I mean, fine, if you want to talk about it from a horror movie perspective, it's still fucking great. If you took out all the commentary, all the, I don't even want to call it political, because it shouldn't be politics. It should just be, to be honest. There's just nothing political about that. It's just shitty things have happened to people, and you need to open your eyes to it and acknowledge that it has been passed down generation by generation by generation. Anyway, I mean, what else have we been talking about for the last hour? But if you're gonna look at this movie from a horror movie perspective, it's fucking great. Like the minimal, like the what is the word? It's like the implied gore.
Yes.
The implied gore, because this man is fucking ripping people asunder. Like, there's like that in the bathroom, like the bathroom scene where like the girls are summoning.
It's my favorite part of the whole movie.
Like one of the white girls that was at the gallery opening with her mom or something remembered that from the pamphlet that you can summon blah 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 Candyman from the mirror. So she gets her like little diverse group of white girls. They're a little bit diverse. You had like one from like each kind of clique. You had like someone that looked a little bit androgynous or non-binary maybe.
They had different levels of
something. You had like a G.I. Jane type character. You had like, you had a few different types. Right? Like they weren't all just like, generic popular white bitch like style. And they do the whole summoning thing, but you don't see any of them get ripped apart, but you see the rivers of blood. Like you see just that sheet of blood coming down and all that stuff. And then like when the critic is being killed.
I love that one.
Negative space again.
Yes.
Yeah. Just the hook and was everybody watching the same game in that apartment building? Because I was looking at all the TVs and they all had like the same like football game or something.
I can't tell if it was on purpose or if that was someone in CGI or effects.
That was just copy and pasting.
Yeah, I love it either way.
Yeah,
I think it's on purpose too.
Yeah, commentary. America's favorite pastime, but actually what America is most known for is happening upstairs.
But that was just, again, the negative space, right? Because it's just like you're focused in on this little panel, but then everything else is just, beautiful. Beautiful.
The cinematography of this film said volumes. And I feel like that's something we lose out on when we don't have the everybody perspective, when you only allow these quote unquote well-known critics to cover things, because they miss moments like that to talk about how they say it's heavy-handed or whatever, or they focus only on one aspect of the movie. And yeah, the high school scene, perfection. Literally my favorite. Well, I say my favorite part of the movie. I think honestly, if I'm being real with you guys, my favorite part of the movie was when towards the end when not Daniel, I'm gonna keep calling him that because I'm trying
Anthony,
to keep on.
Yaya.
Anthony?
Yeah, when Anthony, I'm gonna keep calling him that because my brain is getting all the timelines in Candyman like squished together. When Anthony is kind of devolving right before his last, I'm gonna go to Cabrini Green and confront everybody, and when he's cut his hand and it's infected and he's in front of his painting that he's collaged with the mirrored tiles, that's my favorite moment because I think in that moment there's a shot where it's clarity, it's written all over his face, what incredible acting. And he's like, this is what I've become, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. But high school is a close second, only because I love a group of teenage girls doing a ritual. I always will.
The craft's gone wrong.
Right?
Yeah, good for her. If I had $1 for every time I say good for her.
I was super grateful that the girl having a moment was spared.
Oh, thank God.
The girl having a moment was like the most emo, like I guess whatever 2021's equivalent of emo is.
Ego. This little girl is like having a moment in the bathroom.
Adele Light, whatever it is.
Nah, she was like, I am hungover and I don't belong in high school. I gotta think about this. What the fuck is happening? And I was like, oh my God, I found me. This is me. This is me.
So literally right after that incredibly impactful scene, well, and I've told Sharai this story before. So the first time I saw this, I actually didn't see it in a theater the first time. I got too excited and I couldn't wait, and I saw it at my house. And we have like landscaping and flowers and stuff right outside of our huge window in our living room. And Sherry's already laughing because I've told her this story before. Right at the end of the bathroom scene, the high school bathroom scene, not one but 2 bees hit my window and I screamed. It's like, it's the middle of the day, y'all. It was like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. I had no reason to react that way, but I was like, ah! I hit a high note with it. But we very quickly go from that to him visiting his mom. And that's when we get the big twist where I repeatedly said, oh shit.
I was so into this movie that I had forgotten about that baby until they went to visit his mother. And I was like, she is in this movie. It has to be him. Duh, Sharai. Duh. Like,
well, when they showed her in the trailer, I was trying to figure out when they were going to bring her in.
Yeah, and then you get so engrossed in the rest of the movie that you're like, oh, yeah, whatever. And then it's like, whoa.
Right? No, it made me happy because, again, it tied up enough of it to the original without going back and making all of the mistakes of the original. Okay. It was like, no, that was wrong, but we're going to give us a couple of breadcrumbs and through lines to what could have and should have been that original story to get us here.
That's exactly
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And and the thread that we kind of missed this whole time, and I think I mentioned his name earlier. Well, I forgot his actual name in the movie, but Coleman Domingo, beautiful man.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
You know, he's he was the kid in the flashback that accidentally turned in the red herring Candyman of the 70s.
Yeah.
Sherman.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. He accidentally turned him in just because he screamed when he came out of the hole in the wall, with candy and whatnot. So he's the one that's been kind of like guiding Anthony through everything. Mm-hmm. And he's the one that you find out in the scene with the mother that broke the promise, because he was one of the people that was around there, and they said they were never going to talk about that fire ever again, because then you can't summon Candyman if no one knows about Candyman. And then he's the one that broke it and was like, you heard about Candyman? And
there's always one bastard. There's always one. There's like, I'm taking no secrets.
Bhavna just said that like the cartoon of like somebody pulling up in their trench coat and being like, you interested in a Rolex? I cannot.
You heard about Candyman? And like, you know, he makes himself out to be this neighborhood figure that like never left and like fuck gentrification and blah 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 blah. Runs like a laundry that's like surrounded by a coffee roaster and like a dispensary or something on either side, like their Soul Cycle or something. It's like, Yuppie Store 1, Yuppie Store 2, Yuppie Store 3, laundromat. But you like find out that like he's been like, you know, he's been guiding him through, so he's the one that like broke the promise of never mentioning Candyman. And I have this in my notes, I'm like, we're rooting for you, Coleman Domingo.
It broke my heart to realize that he was not a good person.
No, he basically wanted to complete the ritual because he felt fucking bad that like you know, he got him in trouble. And you kind of find out then the concept, which I really liked about this movie, is that Candyman's not just one person, it's the whole damn hive.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Like, yes. While we're here in this part of the movie, so many things happen that I don't think will ever be discussed on paper in a correct way, because again, nobody's hiring Black critics, but
and you can't do it if you're not.
you can't because again, like we know when William has called the cops, people are gonna get shot because that's what the cops do. This is in Chicago. This is Candyman. We know what's about to happen, and so we're just like, who will not be shot? Who are we gonna save? And so, like, unfortunately, Anthony, who's been through all this shit, saves his girlfriend, whose name I just fucking forgot.
Brianna.
Thank you. I don't know. I forgot Brianna. But he saves Brianna, and then the cops show up and shoot him, as they are wont to do. And you're like, well, this is a fucking downer. And so they're telling her the story she needs to get on board with if she wants to make out of the night. And I'm just like, well, this is fucking depressing. Oh no, this is too realistic. And then what does she do? She summons the power of Candyman.
Oh.
And that's when I was like, this is my new final woman. This is my final femme. This is my waited on forever. Because she's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set you up. And he's like, did you say Candyman? And then all these police officers are dealt with in a timely fashion.
I think my favorite bit in that scene, though, was like, she was just like, okay, I'll do that. Like, just let me, like, that sweet voice of like, okay, just let me, like, look at myself or something. It's like, what the fuck? And she's just like, I'll tell them whatever the fuck you want. Just show me my reflection.
It was like, so powerful to see her do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's so funny is that we can have quote unquote disappointing endings in every other movie, right? I mean, Night of the Living Dead, example number 1.
Oh.
One of my favorites, but also a quote unquote disappointing ending in the traditional sense. And it's an iconic, you know, change the game forever film. We can have all these disappointing endings and no one blinks an eye and they're like, well, it's fine because the rest of the movie was great or whatever. But this film knew that it had to do twice as much, twice as good to be considered iconic, given who was involved, who it stars, who it's written by. I mean, just, my God, what an ending scene.
It was great. I loved it.
I loved it, and I also love that it's a commentary on something that is too fucking commonplace in the real world, yes. Without being like, let's list all these names right here, right now in this movie, because they've already done the work. They've done the work. There's a website. They are giving you like outreach programs. Also, most of us could just turn on fucking Facebook and see how like the cops are like mistreating Black men, and so like. And oh my God, the times where like the person is in the car with him when it happens, or she's there with her kids as it happens, and there's no justice for that. There's no justice because it gets dragged out, and then these cops are like put on paid leave, and then they're back at their jobs. And so like it felt so fucking good on every level of my molecular being to see her be like, not this one time. And fucking clear out this precinct. I lived for it. I would give this section all of the awards if I could, but we know awards don't typically go to Black people, so.
Still forever mad that Lupita Nyong'o wasn't even like nominated.
I think we've mentioned her in like 4 of our first 5 episodes, because we just get indignant.
Her and Toni Collette are the 2 most disrespected women in the horror genre.
Listen,
Yep.
Grandma Colette needs to collect her things. I am very angry.
You cannot watch Hereditary and be like, no awards for her.
You can't watch Knives Out and Hereditary back to back and not give that woman something. The range, the literal range.
I felt embarrassed she was not nominated. Like I had played a part in it. I was like, oh no, what have we done? Wait, who are we? What have you done? So what could I have been doing to get this where it needed to be? Did I not tweet enough? Was it that?
Did I not see it enough times in theater?
Did I not do it right?
Oh my god.
Did I forget to press a button?
Not press a button. Well, I know that we have kind of jumped our way through this, but we were very passionate about certain sections, which I'm totally okay spending more time on.
Oh, totally.
But if we have a succinct closing thought or two, Sharai, you are welcome to take it away.
I will say that this was a year in which it felt good to have 2 things sort of like led by Black women in the genre, because we had this, which Nia DaCosta also has a writing credit on as far as directing it as well. And then we have Malignant. I can use words. We have Malignant, in which Akilah Cooper was like, I'm going to write us a screenplay. Hold, please. And
listen, every award.
And I got to see them in the same weekend. So I was living my best life, because like, as a writer who is a Black woman who would love to be paid to write genre, but who knows if that will happen and when and how.
It will. It will.
We're putting it out there. It will.
Listen, from your podcast to producers' ears, I would love to write something that is not trauma based, because I love writing basic Black girls, because I have been one as soon as I got out of my mother's house. I was like, I'm going to do brunch. I'm going to do it because I can. Is it PSL season? Yes. And so we are a market that is not being represented, because it's always like trauma. And I would love us to have fun in the genre. I'm always saying I want us in the genre without the trauma. And Hollywood's like, we heard genre and trauma. And I'm like, that's not what I said. That's not what I ordered. And they're like, it's too late. We made it.
That TikTok of that girl trying to be like, and also a raspberry slushy, and the person comes back and is like, I have a biscuit, or whatever she says.
That is me in Hollywood. They're like, we heard you, so Jason Blum and Tyler Perry gonna do something for you. I'm like, not for me, they won't. For me, they won't. That is the
It's okay.
I know I will not be seen.
Yeah, it's okay. And for my people, it's like, it's okay. Mindy Kaling did it, and I'm like, do I give a fuck? I don't get me wrong. I do like some of her stuff. I have nothing against her as a person, but like, and good for her on getting her like lens out on like her specific Indianness. But that's not everybody's experience in the diaspora. So, like it's just like, okay, thanks. Like my cousin actually, whose house that I'm in. Shout out to Pooja if she's listening to this episode. But she got told so many times that like she's basically like, oh, like you're Kelly Kapoor. It's like, you're like Mindy Kaling, and it's like, why is it? Because I'm not a light-skinned brown woman. Like,
I hate that. And that's another reason why we need white people to do less. Because
just sit down, get a better writer's room. Let's start there.
Yeah, we are seeing a time where they are greenlighting shows about founding fathers for whomst.
I don't give a shit.
Not me.
I don't need to. I know what they did. Oh, I'm very aware of what the founding fathers did. I don't need a show about it. What?
They have museums for that. We don't.
Listen,
we're good.
Yeah. If you want me to know more about the founding fathers, start paying me, and I'll use those dollars as flashcards, and I will memorize back.
The only time I want to see Jackson is if it's on a bill.
Listen. Like, send me some of those stacks. And I will be like, oh.
The only Benjamins I want to read about are on green paper. So.
Listen.
I mean, that's what it all boils down to, right? Is that the reason we're all so hungry for stories like this one, even if it is part of a series already, because that was the biggest criticism I kept hearing, thinly veiled criticism, I might add, from white critics and especially white guys, was that, oh, do we really need another sequel? And I'm like, that's funny. You didn't mind having 13 Friday the 13th.
Listen.
How many friggin' Star Wars are there?
Listen.
Or they're okay with Jeepers Creepers, which is a whole other issue and a whole other can of worms. Everybody that's listening, Bhavna and Sharai just threw their hands up and we're like, absolutely not.
So many white men have tried me about that. So many white men. Because I'll tweet, because I have the audacity to be on Twitter. And so I'll tweet, we're not covering Jeepers Creepers on my podcast because we don't support that kind of a situation. Yeah. And you have to separate the art from the artist. And I'm like, the art is part of the artist. Like, I know who I'm advocating for in these streets. Like, I am like, I saw your movie. You got issues with Black people. We're not talking right now.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, it would be one thing if everyone's like, well, why do you have to remake it with a character of color or a woman? That's always the complaint, it's that it's a woman.
Yeah.
Why can't you make your own characters? And I'm like, okay, but when we do make our own characters, you guys are like, well, I've never heard of it. I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. So it's a lose-lose situation. We can't win. So screw it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm okay with there being a new Halloween. It's a good time. Like, watch Michael Myers. Wow, do not come for me, Twitter. Watch
My favorite genre is slasher.
We are
over here dragging me.
We are seeing in a world in which Netflix dropped His House last Halloween, and the people. Nobody saw it. Nobody could vote for it. It's Fangoria Chainsaw Awards. It's on Netflix. What were we doing last year? Watching Netflix. Oh, we are about to get a horror noir film. And people are like,
I'm so excited.
I didn't know it was happening. I'm like, you live in the same genre streets I do. How did you not catch this? You didn't want to catch this because there were Black people.
Yeah, and not just horror noir in the Western scope of things either. In an immigrant story. Come on!
They don't want it. Like, go make your own thing so I can ignore it, and then we can say you failed. Which is why so many fools have not seen fucking Tales from the Hood. Tales from the Hood is the best fucking anthology. I've seen it with my own two eyeballs. And they're just like, oh, it said Hood, and I just never got around to it. I'm like, you watch horror movies all fucking day, every day, Chad.
We're having Ryan on, Brother Ghoulish, to talk about Tales from the Hood, and I'm so excited because... Again, that's going to be a literal whole other episode. But the long and short of it is, this film, for anything you could criticize about it, and I'm sure there are certain points, what it does for the genre outweighs, for me, and for many people I know, any criticism you could leverage against it. Specifically, the fact that we didn't center trauma in a gratuitous way. And when we do have trauma, it's either animated, implied, or I think we actually saw maybe 2 minutes of actual, flashback with her dad jumping out the window.
Something like that. Less than 2 minutes.
Less than 2 minutes. Right. And if you are unwilling as a fan of the genre to try something because you're worried about it being too, again, I hate this word, but quote unquote woke, that says so much more about you than it could ever say about a movie. I mean, there are so many films where I go in and I'm like, am I going to love this? Is it going to be a 10 out of 10? Probably not, but it's going to be a good time, so I'm going to watch it. Mm-hmm. And everyone wants to have these extreme reactions of like, it was the best thing I ever saw, or like, it was the worst thing I ever saw. Yeah. And women and people of color and women of color don't get to have that. We don't get the chance. Like, there is no middling ground. It has to be like the best thing someone's ever seen, or it gets ripped to shreds. Hence, like, AKA, which our next episode, I think, so this will air obviously
in November, I believe.
Ish. Yeah. But Malignant, our episode on Malignant comes out, I think, like right before this. Yeah. So, and we had a ball. I mean, we loved it. So that's kind of been the most recent example is like, besides Candyman, people tore that movie to shreds, some people. And I'm just like, or you could just have a good time because not everything needs to make sense. I often compare, comedy to horror and comedy because they're two genres that I think people have very extreme opinions about. But with horror, very rarely are we punching down, which I can appreciate. And this movie just, I mean, it has the art house stuff for people that want the air quotes elevated horror. I hate that term, even though almost all my favorite movies would probably fall into that. Besides Scream, or they need it to be a blockbuster, like the best whatever they've ever seen.
Yeah.
So to tie all my thoughts together, because I know to me they all make sense, but people listening are probably like, all right, wrap it up. I feel so strongly that if you have not seen this movie and you've made it this far, we actually didn't spoil as much as I thought we were going to. Watch it, and if you've seen it, maybe rewatch it with a different lens on it. Of this has nothing to do with me, and that's okay.
Yeah. That's a great closing thought from you. My thoughts are probably also equally as all over the place because with this, as with many movies similar to this, I'm someone that comes from a middle ground, wherein like it's not my experience, so I can't completely be like this is my story because it's not my story, not at all, not in the least. But I'm also not someone that's removed from it either. So when I go to see these, it's always an interesting like lens for me, and also for me to navigate to say what I can and cannot say and about it, or like how I feel and how I don't feel about it and stuff like that. Like it makes me uncomfortable in the right way, if you guys know what I mean. Because I also am a very empathetic person, so regardless of me knowing what is right and wrong in these situations, unlike apparently most people that go to see these movies.
I was like, you mean you're human?
Yes. Oh my god, guys, my robot ruse is done. Damn it, I was fronting as AI. God damn it. I'm a real person. But it's just, we need more films like this, but I think we also need the next step. If you guys kind of get where I'm saying, like movies like Us, Get Out, shows like them, Lovecraft Country, Candyman, stuff like that. They've all done the work, and now we need the next step where it's just people who don't know can just get over it. You're not being spoon fed.
Well, and I think you said a lot there in a good way.
Thank you. I tried.
You said a lot in a few words, which is not my strong suit. This has to be a stepping stone sometimes, because here's what people outside of the industry don't always understand, or they see it as a negative thing. For example, with Shang-Chi that just came out with Disney, the director prior to that had mostly done indie stuff, or on the indie side, the smaller scale side. And people were like, people in a film group that I follow were like, oh, like Disney snapped him up, great. And I'm like, don't you want that for your creators? Like the ability for them to have a bigger budget now that they've done this thing. Like it's the same idea as like when someone's like, oh, my favorite musician sold out. Like, man,
right?
We got bills to pay.
Right? No, like my theory is like if my favorite indie directors can do that with no money and one camera, what will they be able to give me when they do have a budget and two cameras? Like my mind will be blown.
Oh my god! No, it's like you want them to have like it's the whole like sellout kind of thing, right? It's like they're not selling out; they need to make money. They need to feed their kids. Like so do you. It's and by giving them that platform, they're going to be able to make the projects they want to make. I know that sounds like an industry cliche. Like I've heard it in like every interview that any like indie director who's gone big or whatever has like said, right? Like they want the projects. So for every like Shang-Chi, they can make like 10 other films. Like
exactly.
Look at Taika Waititi's career, right?
Yeah.
Like he made Thor, and now look, he was able to make things like Jojo Rabbit and like Reservoir Dogs, and give What We Do in the Shadows a TV show, things
Thank
like that.
God.
He was able to do stuff like that. He was able to, do that kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, fine. They made a Marvel movie. Yeah, fine. Someone made a superhero movie. Someone made a, big name horror movie or whatever. But now look at what they're going to be able to do.
Yeah. And they're also filling a void missing in the Marvel universe because we have a lot of white heroes. And don't get me wrong, I love looking at the A-Team Chris's that haven't pissed me off. But I also like to see people who are not aggressively white. Maybe not aggressively hetero. Maybe not aggressively American.
What's the actor's name who plays M'Baku? I can't remember.
Oh, Winston Duke.
Winston Duke.
Winston Duke.
Mr. Thighs.
Oh my. Thighs of betrayal. Bucky Barnes, move aside.
Listen, we also love you, Sebastian Stan.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, I think that about sums it up for us for Candyman. Go watch it, support it, tweet about it. I'm super excited to see what Nia does next.
Yes.
I'm excited to see what everybody involved in this movie does next.
Listen, like my money just leaves my bank account whenever somebody's announced anything from this movie. It's just like, she's doing what? Ching. Money gone.
Ching, ching.
Ching, ching.
Also, to see Coleman Domingo go from Zola to...
Oh my God! From Zola to this, I was like,
excuse me.
The range.
Calm down a little bit, please.
He's killing it.
Let other people be relatable.
Right? He's crushing it. Sharai, where would you like people to find you on the internet?
Ooh, you can find me and my personal shenanigans at Miss Sharai. That's MISSSHARAI on Twitter and Instagram. I also have a website I should update at some point this year, which is my name, SharaiBohannon.com. I will let you copy paste that from the show notes because I know it's a name. And my podcast can be found at Nightmare Fierce on Twitter and Instagram at A Nightmare on Fear Street, as well as Facebook. If you are checking us out during the Chucky TV season 1, we go live Wednesday nights, and there is a poll on Spotify if you listen to it on Spotify the next day. So yeah. Oh, and Dread Central. That's new information. Oh yeah, I write for Dread Central, so you can check out me just having thoughts and listicles on there like at least once a week, at least.
I was like, and
I do some stuff, and sometimes it's not always the right order I say it in. So.
Okay. Bhavna, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at The Lucky Charms, SHARMS, and on Instagram they can find me also at The Lucky Charms, but with that fancy little underscore at the end because someone took it already. What about you, Jamie?
It's okay. I'm at Glitter Burrito on Twitter and at Jamie Kirsten Howard on Instagram. I will never rebrand my Twitter to my full name. Don't care. We can be found as at Bloody Broads Pod on both Instagram and Twitter. And if you have thoughts, if they're positive, feel free to send them to us, bloodybroadspod@gmail.com. And if you didn't like this episode, leave us a 5-star review and tell us about it.
Actually, if you didn't like this episode, go to your bathroom, stand in front of the mirror, say Candyman about 5 times, and we're square.
All right, guys. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye.